Uh, Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you might be and whenever you might be. I want to welcome our television audience, our guests, our members, and our interpreter, Jamie. Um, we are rebroadcasting our meetings for the Mayor's Commission on Citizens for Disabilities for the City of Omaha. And I'm informed that they're at 5 o'clock on Monday, so you might be watching this on a Monday um, on Channel 22, KPAO. That part of my little read it piece is correct. Um, Videos of these meetings can also be viewed at the Disabilities Commission website. If you go to www.cityofomaha.org, pretty easy to remember, then click the mayor's office, then click Disabilities Commission. It will take you to a web page where you can access YouTube videos of this meeting and past meetings if there are issues of interest that we've covered in the past while. Um, I want to briefly, or maybe not so briefly, remind you of the reason that we're getting together, our mission and purpose. Um, the mission and purpose for the Omaha Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities is primarily to promote the quality of life, the accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the city on behalf of and in cooperation with citizens of Omaha who experience disabilities. To this end, we work to advise the mayor, the city council, city departments, and other personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, and quality of life that affects city citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We try to serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families to express concern and resolutions regarding issues that affect them. We also work to publicize the role of the Mayor's Commission and resources available to assist individuals with disabilities, employers, housing representatives, business owners, engineers and architects, and others who have a role in bettering the life of Omaha citizens overall. We work to promote awareness of the general public on the capabilities, the needs and desires of citizens with disabilities in our city. We work to publicly recognize the efforts of employers, businesses, schools, organizations, and others who've demonstrated outstanding support for people with disabilities and programs that support them. We work to serve as an advocate for accessibility issues, and we work to support the implementation of plans and projects to improve services for people with disabilities in the city. And we review and implement plans and projects for advocating for services with citizens with disabilities. And as I read that, I'm just remembering we kind of did all of those things this year at some juncture or the other. So hopefully we're putting our money where our mouth is. Um, let's see. Now, we'll probably do some quick announcements at the end of the meeting unless our presenters get really wordy, but that's okay because they have a lot to tell us. So very quickly though, we only have 3 members here, but we're working to increase that number. Take a second for our members present to introduce themselves.
I'm Megan Walls. I'm with Assistology. I focus on training and consulting around disability inclusion issues and work with individuals across the lifespan. I'm also the vice chair of the commission.
I'm Stephanie Scavdahl. I work with Outlook Enrichment. We provide employment and enrichment opportunities for those that are blind and visually impaired.
And we have a couple members who aren't here, but now that I've been talking to you for about 10 minutes, my name is Mark Smith. I serve on the faculty of the University of Nebraska Medical Center at the Monroe Meyer Institute, which is the University Center for Excellence for the state of Nebraska as regards intellectual and developmental disabilities. I'm also the parent of a young man with intellectual disabilities and sibling to my younger sister, who also has intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I would inform my audience, our audience, to have a pen and paper handy to take notes, because we'll try and do some quick announcements towards the end, and we'll try and include information to contact folks as needed. Like I said, we're short a few members today, but we did have a quorum. The I'm just going to say the announcements got there. The minutes were approved. The minutes were approved. He announced to our last meeting. I wasn't here for it, so I had to defer to my colleagues due to being out of town for travel for my job. With that, I'm going to look up to our presenters for today. The first I'll mention is Mr. Ian Fremming. He directs navigation services for Madonna School, which is a long-standing program in the city of Omaha for students with disabilities. And he works in particular in the area of employment and employment services as related to the Madonna School program. Our other presenter is Mr. Sam Comfort. He's the Executive Director of Angel Guardians, who've done quite a bit of work in the area of employment as relates to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in concert with a number of folks. But they can probably introduce themselves better than I can, although I have quite a few secrets up my sleeve on Ian, but that's another story entirely. With that, I will open it up to our presenters to share a little bit about the issues of disability and employment, which is our topic for this month. So thank you guys for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the introduction. Do we have to put on a slideshow?
There's actually, if you look right to the right of the computer, there's a little place where you can plug in, like right by where the mouse is, there should be a little area where you can plug it in, or if you open the cabinet, or right down there, there's a place you can plug it in. And Nydia, you'll have to give permission to share on Zoom.
While we're getting things organized on this end, I did want to mention that I have a long history with Madonna School. I was commenting about I'm the sibling of a younger sister who has intellectual and developmental disabilities, who attended Madonna School for probably the first 8 or 9 years of her education. Back in the day, there was no free appropriate public education through the public schools, and so Madonna was there and available for us. So
Back when it was a one-room schoolhouse, tiny little thing in Benson.
There were several rooms.
Yeah. Okay, host now. Yep. Okay, awesome. Hopefully everybody can see that. As Mark said, my name is Ian Fremming. I'm the Director of Adult Services for the Madonna School. Mark and I worked together in the USED about 4 years ago when I was the Employment Services Liaison, and I actually randomly met Stephanie on a training in Seattle, Washington. So, yeah, the only 2 people from Nebraska in Seattle at that time. So we ran into each other. And then I've known Megan for quite a while working together. So It's good to see all you guys. At Madonna, our employment activities, we have three main employment activities that we do. We have a project search program that operates at UNMC and Nebraska Med. We have employment classes that run twice a week that utilize VR milestones to help an individual gain competitive employment. And then we have on-site job supports for individuals through VR and through Nebraska Developmental Disabilities. We provide job coaching. I'll start and explain Project Search. So Project Search is a partnership with UNMC and Nebraska Med, Nebraska Voc Rehab, Omaha Public Schools, and the Nebraska Division of Developmental Disabilities. It's a 9-month internship program for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities on site at UNMC Nebraska Med campus with the goal of acquiring competitive employment. The individuals that go through the program get to work on 3 different rotation sites where they work with an individual who is employed by UNMC and Nebraska Med or Sodexo, Cardinal Health, all of the, I'm just going to admit him since I'm the host. So, but they get to go around and work at these different jobs and kind of explore different career opportunities on the campus. There's a really wide range of internship opportunities that they have. It goes everything from facilities and maintenance to office work to environmental services, working in the kitchens. Last I checked, we had 52 internship sites available for our clients to choose from. Prior to this year, the class was primarily transition age youth. So they were individuals in their last year of transition through OPS or through us. At Madonna, we have quite a few rural school contracts for transition, given that a lot of rural school districts don't have the population to support a transition program. They can contract with us to provide those services to that student. That opportunity was actually championed by our foundress, Sister Evangeline, back in the middle 70s and was written into law. So if anybody here is benefiting from that, thanks Sister Evangeline, wherever she might be. So recently this year, we've added a pilot program to serve adults 21 and older. This is the not the first of its kind in Nebraska, but the first of its kind in this iteration. We were able to work with both Director Lindy Foley and Director Tony Green from DHHS and Voc Rehab to come up with a blended funding model that utilizes both vocational rehabilitation dollars and Nebraska Developmental Disability waiver dollars. So for 2 hours a day, the individuals participate in pre-vocational training in the classroom, where they go over things like proper hygiene, preparing for work, transferable job skills, so communication, social skills within a workplace, workplace appropriateness, and then they go off for another 5 hours to do their rotation site, where they are a full participant in one of the jobs that's on campus that they choose. The first class we enrolled this year in this new pilot program is currently serving 6 adults. And our entire Project Search program over the past 4 years has had about 90% post-graduation employment rate. Yes, Mark? Yeah.
So how does a 90% employment rate compare with current unemployment for people with disabilities in the state of Nebraska?
That's a good question. The employment percentage for people with disabilities in the state of Nebraska is considerably higher than other states. Even though our unemployment in the state of Nebraska for the general population is very low, the percent that is in our IDD population is very high. So it's very much an untapped resource in Nebraska, and it's a phenomenal work base. They're great population to work with. Our employment classes are a follow-up to our Project Search program. So after an individual graduates as an adult for our Project Search program, they start the Milestone program through VR. When they start, the first about month or 2 months is a lot on job development and job searching, which happens during these classes. So they occur twice a week, and they're focused on helping individuals prepare for employment, which can be resume building, interview skill building, transportation to and from interviews. And then with everything that we do at Madonna, it's a person-centered approach. So that individual has to be an active participant in their future. They have to choose which jobs they want to interview for. We help them along the way to try and expose them to new opportunities that might be out there, but we are never going to place an individual in a job. They are going to choose to interview and accept a job. Typically, when we go through the classes, an individual will have 3 or 4 job opportunities by the end of the class that they can choose from. And then we get together with the families, get together with the guardians, get together with all the supports going into helping this individual gain employment and maintain employment. And that individual then picks which job opportunity is the best for them. And the last stop on the employment train at Madonna is on-site job supports. So for the first month, we fully support each individual on the job 100% of the time while they're working. The idea behind that is the job coach needs to build a relationship with both the business and the client. They need to be there to explain things to the client that the business needs, and they also need to be there to explain to the business the needs of the clients. We follow best practice when it comes to fading techniques. A lot of the time when individuals talk about fading techniques when it comes to employment, it's, oh, well, I'm going to step back for an hour today, or I'm going to step back 45 minutes, and then we're going to work to stepping back an hour, and then we're going to work to stepping back an hour and a half. We don't do that at Madonna. What we do is we ask our job coaches to identify where the client needs assistance or how the client needs assistance, and then the job coach needs to find natural supports within the business to replace themselves. So whether it's an individual is having trouble staying on task, well, I think we all in our jobs have trouble staying on task sometimes, and we all need help and support from our coworkers. So it would be up to that job coach to then go approach the coworker and say, hey, this individual really needs help staying on task. Can you just maybe cue them to get back to what they're doing if they start small talking? So again, we follow best practice on fading techniques and really try and be at the pinnacle of providing supports for employment. As I said before, we always provide support to the business. So sometimes that's understanding universal design, which Megan knows much more about than I do. So if you have any questions, definitely direct those towards Megan. But we're big on reasonable accommodations. Everybody needs reasonable accommodations in their life, whether it's switching from an analog clock to a digital clock, or maybe, an accessible keyboard that's a little bigger than your normal keyboard. And what we found in working with this population is that, yes, we are usually doing the reasonable accommodation for the person that we are providing supports for, but it almost always benefits the general population that is working in that business at that time. So we get some really, really good feedback from businesses about, hey, I never thought to do that, and it's added a great benefit, along with having an employee that is top-notch and very reliable. Currently in our employment program, we're serving 32 individuals, so that's about 63% of our population right now that we serve is competitively employed in some manner. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is barriers to employment. So I'm sure you guys can all solve these by the time that we're done here, and then we can just delete this slide for the next time that you guys ask me to come. But the biggest one right now is transportation. So to and from work is not funded through any state support program. That is always our biggest barrier. It does no good to get an individual a job at UNMC and Nebraska Med, no matter how good of a fit that job is, if that person lives in Bennington and their parents work throughout the day. Getting transportation to and from work is always the hardest thing. Our public transportation in Omaha is great inside the inner city, but as you work out towards the more rural communities, it falls off significantly. The second one would be benefits education. When I was working at UNMC, that was like my first kind of dip into talking with the bigger population of disability in Omaha, as opposed to my little niche in Madonna when I was a job coach. But when I worked at UNMC, I talked to a ton of parents who had, 8, 9, 10-year-olds that were talking about, oh no, they're never going to work. They're never going to work. We don't want that. They're going to lose their benefits. And that's just simply not true. So getting rid of that stigma that you cannot work and keep your benefits at the same time, it's a big emphasis that I have in my job, especially with navigation. It is always possible, and it's always a benefit to work and keep your benefits at the same time. We just have to figure out how to do it. And there are plenty of people out there who can do that. Stephanie is one of them. I'm one of them. Easter Seals of Nebraska is great. And then the third thing is lack of providers. So employment supports for the DD population went through kind of a big upheaval about 6 or 7 years ago, which is when VR adopted the Milestone program. Prior to the Milestone program, VR was using kind of an hourly based funding model, and DD was actually using an hourly based funding model as well. One of the issues that popped up is in the state transition plan, providers were double dipping. So they were billing VR for employment supports at the same time as they were billing state Medicaid through the home and community-based waivers. That thankfully has stopped and is not happening anymore. But when that stopped, one of the big incentives, which is money and capital, to providing job supports kind of went away. So a lot of the providers in Omaha have struggled to adjust to the Milestone program. We at Madonna have developed a system where we put time limits on how much time an individual or a job coach or a job developer can spend with an individual on that first milestone. And then after, if we don't hit that mark, which we've never not hit that mark before, but if we were to not hit that mark, then we would have to find another way to fund it. So we would have to dip into outside donations or some sort of philanthropy from the community. But like I said, a lot of the providers have dropped off, especially with COVID. COVID was like another knife into the heart of a, kind of a dying thing. And some of the bigger providers pulled way back on employment. So that's all I have for my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
I had a couple comments.
Yeah.
First, going back, I actually knew Sister Evangeline pretty well, and she was a force of nature.
Yes.
And I'll leave it right there.
Yep.
The second, I wanted to note kind of for our audience that when you talked about Director Foley and Director Green coming together, we're talking about programs that typically did not, I don't want to say they didn't play well together. I don't think they played together at all. And so Project Search is a program that has required that level of collaboration, and to their credit, Lindy Foley and Tony Green stepped up and made it happen. And the last thing I'll say is, again, just to go back to the, I believe the UNMC program is the longest running search program in the state. There are other search programs, but
It is the second longest.
well,
Yep.
irrespective, any employment program that's achieving over 90% placement, I don't care what you're talking about. That's significant, and we're, it's just search is a program that emerged from the USED network, and so it's just nice to see it accomplishing such great outcomes here in Omaha. So.
Yeah, it's a fantastic program, something that we kind of identified as one of the main factors in that post-graduation employment rate was the continuity of service. So because Madonna School had two parts to it, one being the adult side and the other being a school-based service, the graduates of Madonna were able to work with our Project Search team for an entire calendar year. Whereas in the public school system, they're only able to work with them for 9 months, and then they get handed off to either VR or another adult provider that subcontracts with VR. So being able to have that rapport and that understanding of an individual without reading it on paper and actually experiencing it all the way through, that we believe that that's a huge factor in our success rate for employment.
Outstanding.
Yeah, and again, credit to Director Green and Director Foley on coming together and working on that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I just had a couple to get some additional information out there. So with the Project Search program, if I'm not a Madonna client currently, and I want to tap in and participate in that program, what does that look like? How does that happen?
So you would have to become a Madonna client if you're an adult. Through our transition side and the OPS side, if you were an OPS student, you could absolutely participate. You would just have to work with the OPS administration to get the information to come to our assessment day. But yeah, anybody can come and join. You would have to be a client of Madonna for that 9 months. But after that 9 months, if you don't want to utilize Madonna for job coaching or job development or anything like that, that's your choice. So all we're asking is that you be a client of Madonna for the 9 months that you're in the program, so that we can utilize DD and VR dollars to help support the program.
Awesome. And then you mentioned very briefly this concept that you're involved in around navigation.
Yeah.
What does that look like, and what does that mean for Madonna clients? What does that mean for the general community who has questions?
Yeah, so one of the main reasons that I was brought back to Madonna was because the president, John Burt, identified a hole in their service. And it was that parents were not in touch with the system and in touch with supports. And it was really hard for them to go out and find the supports that they actually needed. They weren't tapped into the right resources. So he brought me back in to kind of cast a wider net for services and be able to help those families navigate through that really tough time, especially in adolescence. Other parents can be your best resource and they can be your worst resource at the exact same time. They can be your best resource to tap you in and say, hey, this worked for me, go try this. And they can be your worst resource in saying, don't even bother with it. I tried it, and here's the pain that I went through. So don't even try it. Every individual is just that. They're an individual, and every individual's case is different. And so that's a lot of what I do at Madonna, is figuring out how to help those individual cases navigate the complex systems of federal Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, Title II benefits, all those different things, as well as connecting with community partners like Assistology for assistive tech. So it's my hope that a parent can call me and say, hey, I have this problem. I really need this. I don't know what to do. I'm at my end of my rope, and I can pick up my phone and make 5 different calls and get that person support within a couple months.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Should
Thank
I turn
you.
it over to Sam?
Sure.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sam Comfort. I'm the Executive Director of Angel Guardians. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's fitting that we're talking about employment services, as October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, so appreciate the opportunity to kind of speak to what AGI does and needs that we see in the community as well. So first, just a quick rundown of AGI. At AGI, we foster abilities, increase access to, and create opportunities for inclusion. We believe that because of our work, people have access to meaningful choices and control over their lives, that they are thriving in an inclusive community that cultivates diverse abilities. Our values and service include equity, innovation, community, accountability, and passion. We strive for staff to embody these and for clients to be able to say the value of the service that they receive. Quick rundown of the programs and services that we provide. We are a provider through Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, as well as Nebraska Department of Education, and a contractor with vocational rehabilitation. The programs listed on the screen in front of you are day programs primarily. Community Connections focuses on community integration. We're out in the community greater than 70% of the time. Artworks also focuses in the community setting, but provides the materials, instruction, support for individuals to develop art and market it in the community setting. VSP Club is our social recreational opportunity. It happens evenings and weekends. And then Teamworks, the point of my presentation today, focuses on providing supports for individuals to develop skills as well as find and keep competitive integrated employment. So as Ian mentioned earlier, Nebraska has a higher employment rate for people with disabilities than some other states, but there's still work to be done. The latest data I was able to find was that 48% of Nebraskans with disabilities are employed. If we look at that, and beyond that, looking at, I just lost the word, labor force participation rate is even lower. So we need to ensure that there are opportunities and look at funding sources to ensure that staff can provide support for individuals who want to gain employment. I want to talk first about our work-based learning program. So similar to Project Search, we offer opportunities for high school students to engage in work and education at community employer settings. So we partner with the Metro Omaha YMCA and Newcastle Retirement Center here in Nebraska to provide students opportunities to diverse work while providing instruction support to help increase their success. So students come to us for a portion of their school day. They're paid minimum wage for the time that they spend working with the goal of developing large transferable skills that they can go out and enter the world of employment. Our pathway, much like Ian talked about, starts with work-based learning for high school students. And through that, we partner with the Nebraska Department of Education and Omaha Public Schools specifically. We work on pre-vocational training, opportunities for adults, funded through Nebraska VR and DHHS, and then we support competitive integrated employment through Nebraska VR and Nebraska DHHS. We currently have one staff who works primarily on supportive employment. He has a caseload of 12 at the moment, and we're seeing great success. As we kind of talked about with COVID, a lot of employment supports from other providers went away. And we found it was a unique situation to really address because employers are looking for employees and they're willing to engage in non-traditional ways to gain those employees. So we've had good luck talking to employers, increasing understanding and knowledge base to support employment for the people that we serve. Quick and breezy. Are there any questions that I can answer at this point?
Appreciate that. Can you share a little with the work-based learning program? Can you, two questions around that. Can you share a little bit more about what the day-to-day of that looks like for the clients? And then also maybe can you share a little bit about in that program why the emphasis on minimum wage payment for their work is such a big deal?
Absolutely. So a student referred to us right now comes from Omaha Public Schools. They are typically in the transition program. They come to us for roughly 2 hours out of their school day. At the YMCA, it's work ranging from clerical to custodial. One of the things we love about partnering with the Y is the opportunity to work in the child care centers. So both the unlicensed child watch and the licensed child care to develop those skills. On site, we have a work skills trainer who is in AGI staff, who really acts as the intermediary between the business and the student, as well as contracted certified teachers who provide oversight of the curriculum instruction and provide day-to-day classroom setting instruction. The importance of paying students for the time that they work, I think, is paramount to the success of the program because we focus on the correlation between the value of the time you spend working and money, right? I love my job. If AGI didn't pay me, I wouldn't show up as often. So I think it's really important that we teach to the value of a dollar.
Well, I appreciate that as the board president for your Guardians. This question for either you or Ian, or both of you, as you're exploring growth of these programs and having conversations with businesses and families that are interested, what types of jobs or opportunities are your clients or the students asking for? You mentioned kind of childcare, but for anyone that's listening and watching, like if they're involved with a business or an organization, like what are you hearing that the experiences that they are looking for?
I mean, it spans the spectrum of employment. I don't think there's a prescriptive type of job that I can say an entire group is looking for. We do see a lot of interest in either childcare or working with animals. I would kind of say, yeah.
That's the other one that I was going to say.
What is it?
Pet store.
Pet store.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think people who have utilized services want to provide service in some way. That's the model that they've seen or that they know. But, we've supported people who explored career paths in data entry, clerical tasks, supporting a couple people right now who are working at Hy-Vee. Yeah, it's all across the board.
So, and I may have missed this, Sam, but so how many folks that have kind of come through your program are actually out competitively employed at this point?
Through the work-based learning program? So we're in our second year. We only had 4 students who graduated and left school-based services. 2 of those have employment. Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing the screen before I go.
That would be good. Thank you. Well, our great thanks to Sam and Ian for coming and talking a little bit about these issues. I would be remiss if I didn't say what a nice job Hannah did when she came several months back to talk about one of the contracts that AGI has for related to staff training around behavioral supports for people with disabilities in DD services. So did a great job. So Hannah rocks. A couple things I'll finish up with. We did have a pre-meeting, and as I mentioned, like we approved our minutes and the agenda, et cetera. But we had a couple of discussions, and some of this is going to come back to kind of touching base with our other members who weren't able to make it today. First of all, we're looking at the 28th is our next scheduled meeting, and there was a discussion around, well, that's adjacent to a holiday, and I think at least for the moment we're staying with the 28th of November, and seeing how that works and seeing how it works for the other members. So more to come on that. The second thing I would mention is that we're going to continue with the theme of employment, and maybe broaden it out and look at folks that might be able to speak, to, I guess, more broadly to disability and employment. And so we're looking at the possibility of reaching out to vocational rehabilitation, as was mentioned often, is so critical in terms of the employment work that's going on in the Omaha area, to see if what they might be able to talk to us about. And of course, Megan and Stephanie and I and most of the folks on the board now have dipped our toe in that, or at least play in that sandbox. How about that? Dip the toe in the pool. I think some of our members had dove into the pool lock, stock, and barrel. So, but we're going to stay with employment, and then we would be looking at taking a break for Christmas. Having a meeting around the Christmas holidays just never seemed to kind of go quite right. And then we usually do our planning meeting in January. So that's kind of a rough idea of what our plans are going forward. So we will have a meeting in November. It's unlikely we'll have a meeting in December unless something comes up and we have a specific reason to meet. And then we usually do planning for the year in January. It's usually very cold out by then, but it'll be here before you know it. The other thing we talked about was we're hopeful that we're going to be seeing some new members. We've been low on members for a significant period of time. Again, as was mentioned by our presenters today, COVID-19 and that whole circumstance hurt us, in terms of people that were able, and then the process of getting new members approved. But apparently we're hearing that things might be moving. I don't know if Gerald wants to jump up and, well, Gerald's nodding, and I'll take it.
Good news only, Gerald.
Yes, we have good news.
This is
So-
Gerald Kuhn with the Department of Human Rights and Relations.
Yep, Gerald Kuhn, Human Rights and Relations. I do know that recently I spoke with the mayor during our last one-on-one meeting, and she assured me that we had to get a chartered board through, and that is all done. So now we're coming back, and we have everyone's application that has applied. We have reviewed them. We're just waiting for the mayor's stamp of approval. And so the applicants have been moved, the applications have been moved forward to the mayor's office. They are in Carrie Murphy's possession, and we should be hearing something from them very soon.
That's great. Will, that's great news.
So they have moved from my hand to the mayor's office. So that's a big step.
We will take progress.
Yes.
Gerald, absolutely.
All right.
No, well, some of our discussion was around looking at some innovative ways of kind of doing our business in terms of supporting people with disabilities in the city and supporting the city as it does its work, and how that relates to people with disabilities. And having our numbers so low has limited,
Yes.
our capacity to. So we're grateful for folks like Sam and Ian and others that are willing to come out and talk to us, and so that we can continue to try and put the word out. But, you know, some of us are a little bit ambitious. And
Absolutely. And I am ambitious as well because I know this board does great work. And this is one of the boards I'm very proud of because through it all, you guys keep plugging forward. And I'm very appreciative for that. And I know that once we get a functional board, a 9-member functional board, then we will move forward with full steam. And the individuals that we have in the waiting list are awesome individuals. So, and I'm pretty sure you guys know a lot of them. So, we will when they get onboarded, I will let you know, and then they will be here with you guys. All right.
Party at my house.
Thank you. Right.
So we've got a few minutes. I would like to open it up to our members if they have any announcements in terms of activities they're involved in or anything that's coming up in the next month that you'd like to share about.
Yeah, I'm glad we have some time. I want to share a few events. First of which, Angel Guardians having a trunk and treat on October 28th from 2 to 6 p.m. It's off of 156th and Maple. The PVA, the Paralyzed Veterans of America, is having a trunk and treat on Sunday, October 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. And then this is a little ways out, but going to keep planting the seed. The 3rd annual Illuminate Inclusion, so holiday lights drive-through display at Zorinsky Lake is scheduled for December 9th and 10th from 5 to 9 p.m. There's no cost to attend. We do accept free will donations at the event, but there'll be a couple of food trucks and some new exhibits and things that'll be wonderful. And then finally, in conjunction with Heartland Workforce Solutions, there's going to be an event called Boost Your Job Search on site at their location on 50th and Ames, 52nd and Ames, on November 17th at 1 p.m. It'll be a workshop to lead individuals who identify as having a disability through developing a profile and utilizing the Jobsability Jobs Board, which is specifically for candidates who identify as having a disability. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Stephanie?
Outlook Enrichment has on November 13th, we have Ollie the Trolley, a haunted cemetery tour happening on, again, November 13th. You can go to our website, outlooken.org, to register for that. And then we have a few cooking classes happening at No More Empty Pots. One on November 19th for teens. And then our adult one is December 3rd. So those events can be found on our website.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph. I'll just make one quick announcement. We had our trunk and treat yesterday. The cool thing was we had over 400 families come through. So it was, fortunately we had weather. It was, the weather yesterday is so different from today. It was a little breezy, admittedly, but we had it at our new building at 69th and Pine, and so it was plenty of space, and so yeah, 400 plus families attended, and so we were super pleased that we could provide that service. I will mention that again, as I commented earlier, that this will be repeated on Cox Channel 22. I don't think this is correct. I believe what I heard was that it's at 5 p.m. on Mondays. And our next meeting is scheduled again for November 28th, and we're looking at reaching out for some additional information for people with disabilities and the public at large on disability employment. With that, with the approval of the members present, I'll call us adjourned, and I will finish with saying we appreciate our translator Jamie, who is awesome. And we're hoping we can get her next month, but we'll see how all that goes with the holidays and such. So thank you again. We're adjourned. We'll see you next month.
I don't think she translated that. She's awesome.